There's a secret to generating power and spin with your forehand, and it's not what most players think. It's not swinging harder. It's not using more arm. It's not even about not using more arm. It's not even about the grip, although that matters too. The players who hit the heaviest forehands in the world, the ones where the ball jumps off the court and sits up impossible high in the corner, they're not stronger than everyone else. They figured out 5 specific things about how power and spin are actually generated, and once those things clicked, the ball started behaving completely differently. The good news is every single one of these is learnable. Every single one can be felt in your very next session. Here's all 5. 1. The wrist lag is where all the power actually comes from. This is the one that changes everything once you feel it for the first time. And the reason most players never find it is because it feels counterintuitive when you first try to understand it. Most players, when they want more power on the forehand, do the obvious thing. They swing faster, more arm speed, more racket speed, more pace on the ball. The logic makes sense on the surface, but there's a ceiling to how fast you can move your arm. And most recreational players are already close to that ceiling on their harder shots. So they max out, and the extra effort just produces tension and inconsistency rather than the power they were after. The wrist lag bypasses that ceiling entirely. Here's what it is. As your arm swings forward toward the ball, the wrist naturally stays slightly behind. The racket head lags behind the hand for a fraction of a second before snapping through at contact. That snap, that last second whip of the racket head through the contact zone, generates racket head speed that's completely independent of how fast your arm is moving. It's like the end of a whip moving faster than your arm could ever swing it. The crack happens not from speed, but from the sequence of movement releasing all at once at the tip. The key is that you don't force the wrist snap. You let it happen. A tight forearm kills it. The wrist lag only produces that whipping effect if your forearm is relaxed through most of the swing. Grip the racket firm enough not to lose it, but loose enough that your wrist can move freely. Take slow swings and feel the racket head lagging behind your hand before releasing at the end. That release, that snap, is where the power actually comes from, not the arm. 2. Brushing up through the ball, not hitting at it. This is the difference between a flat, weak forehand that floats and gets attacked, and a heavy topspin forehand that jumps and pushes your opponent behind the baseline. Most players approach the forehand like they're trying to drive the ball forward. They hit at it. Racket face going roughly horizontally into the back of the ball, trying to propel it straight ahead. That produces a flat shot with some pace, but very little margin over the net, very little spin, and very little weight on the bounce. It goes fast, but it doesn't do anything when it lands. The topspin forehand is a different motion. Instead of driving into the back of the ball horizontally, you're brushing up the back of it. Your racket face starts slightly below the ball and moves upward through contact, grazing the back of the ball from low to high. That upward brushing motion puts forward rotation on the ball, and that rotation is what makes it dip down into the court and kick up high on the bounce. Here's the important part that most people miss. Brushing up doesn't mean slowing down. You can brush up hard and fast, and the result is a ball with both heavy topspin and serious pace. In fact, topspin and power are not opposites. They're produced by the same motion. The harder and faster you brush up through the ball, the more of both you get simultaneously. To feel this, start with slow swings and actually visualize your racket strings going from below the ball to above it through a short arc at contact. Feel the ball come off the strings with a slightly rough, grippy sensation rather than a clean, flat pop. That rough feeling is the spin being generated. Work it up to match speed over a few sessions. And if you want to take your tennis to the next level, check out the Tennis Master Pack. A pack that includes the Elite Player Guide with technical and tactical tips. The Become a Pro Guide, where you'll learn how to become a pro tennis player. A full week fitness routine to take your fitness to the next level, and a prevention routine to prevent injuries and enhance recovery. This pack already helped hundreds of tennis players. Get your clicking on the link in the description. Let's continue with the video. 3. Stay low through and after contact. Watch. Jannik Sinner hit a forehand in slow motion, and pay attention to his legs. He goes into the shot low and he stays low, not just until contact, but through contact and into the follow-through. His knees are still bent, after the ball has left the strings, and that detail, as small as it looks on screen, explains a large part of why his forehand is one of the heaviest on tour. When your body rises during the swing, when your legs straighten as you hit, 2 things happen. First, your contact point becomes inconsistent. The ball you set up to hit at one height is now meeting a rising body, so the relationship between your racket face and the ball changes every time. Second, your base disappears at the worst moment. All the stability that bent knees give you, The platform that lets your arm drive through the ball rather than at it vanishes right when you need it most. Staying low keeps everything stable. Your contact point stays where you set it up. Your arm has a solid base to push against, and the energy you generated from the ground stays in the swing all the way through contact instead of leaking out as your body straightens up. Practice this with an extra focus on the first 5 shots of every warm-up session. Exaggerate the knee bend. Stay lower than you think is necessary and hold that low position through the follow-through. It will feel like a leg workout. That's correct. Within a few sessions, it becomes automatic and you'll notice your contact getting noticeably cleaner and more consistent. 4. Your hips rotate first, everything else follows. The arm does not start the forehand, the hips do. And if you're leading your swing with your shoulder or your elbow, you're starting the whole kinetic chain 3 steps too late and wondering why your forehand lacks the natural power you see in better players. The sequence is this: hips turn first. As the hips rotate toward the ball, the torso is dragged along. As the torso rotates, the shoulder follows. As the shoulder moves, the arm gets pulled forward. The arm doesn't pull itself. It gets carried. And by the time the racket head reaches the contact zone, it's been accelerated by the rotation of everything below it, arriving with far more speed than the arm alone could have produced. When you lead with the arm instead of the hips, you skip the first 3 links in that chain. The arm is doing its own work rather than being carried by a chain that started elsewhere. An arm-generated power has a ceiling. Hip plus torso plus shoulder plus arm power does not. Feel this right now without a racket. Stand in your forehand stance. Turn your hips hard to the left and let everything else follow passively. Don't pull your arm, just turn your hips and let the arm get dragged. Feel how fast your hand moves even though it did nothing deliberate. That passive drag is what you're after. Now add the racket. Lead with the hips every single swing. Let the arm arrive last. The ball will feel different in a way that's hard to describe until you feel it. In this video, I will show you how to stop your strokes from being weak, not only your forehand. I recommend you watch it after this one. 5. The follow-through decides what the ball does. Most players think of the follow-through as something that just happens after the shot. The ball is already gone, so whatever the racket does after contact doesn't matter. That belief is costing them control over every forehand they hit. The follow-through is not a consequence. It's a decision. Where your racket ends up after contact tells you what happened at contact. Because to get the racket to a specific finish position, the swing path through the contact zone had to follow a specific trajectory. The finish and the contact are connected. Change the finish deliberately and you change the contact automatically. A high finish, racket ending up over your non-dominant shoulder, arm extended upward, means the swing path went up through the ball, which means topspin, net clearance, and control. This is your go-to finish for cross-court forehands and high-bouncing balls. A flat finish, racket ending forward and roughly level, means the swing path was more horizontal through contact, which means flatter pace and a lower margin over the net. This is for put-away balls when you're inside the baseline. Start thinking about the finish before you swing rather than after. Decide what the ball needs to do, topspin or flat, and pick the finish that produces it. High finish for spin and control. Flat finish for pace and risk. 2 choices. Applied consistently, they give you complete intentional control over what your forehand does every single time. You hit it. 5 things. Let the wrist lag naturally and snap through instead of muscling with the arm. Brush up through the ball to generate spin and power together. Stay low through contact the way Sinner does to keep your base stable. Lead with the hips so the arm arrives last and carried by everything below it. And choose your follow-through deliberately because it decides what the ball actually does. You don't need a new technique. You need to understand the technique you already have at a deeper level. These 5 things are what make a forehand feel effortless and heavy at the same time. Chase that feeling in your next session, one thing at a time. Drop a comment telling me which of these 5 you've been missing. I want to know. Subscribe for more of this. Blue Tennis Dude. See you in the next one.